Welcome to Beauty Flip. Today we're going to hang out with Albert Einstein. To him, the world was not a puzzle to be solved, but a living mystery to be embraced. A dance of energy, matter, and imagination. So let's see what's just so cool about the way he looked at the world. Hi, welcome. Today we are going to dive into this experience of being creators, of how absolutely genetically we create all the time. So I'm excited for that. But before we go there, let's just kind of scoop back our last episode, shall we? Because I think it's an important one. And though maybe a tad dramatic, I want to just explain what is so alluring, once again, about this uneven playing field that I've been talking about. Because it is in the very face of our messy humanness and in the messiness of life that the invitation to jump onto the uneven playing field becomes so alluring. See, it is this idea that we can move out of, beyond, rise above all of the mess. That we, if we buy enough products, do enough training, join enough master classes, lose enough weight, get enough toned, or wear the right clothes, buy the right purses, drive the right cars, get the right job, that we will avoid the pain of our humanness. And I say, in my ideas of Beauty Flip, that it's the opposite. That we forego all of that, or at least forego the idea that that's the answer. Like, hey, go buy those things, do those things. But that is not the answer. And that we dive into our humanness, that we dive into the brilliance of who we are. We dive into the messiness. We experience it. We feel it. We cry. We have our feelings of frustration and anger. We're afraid. And in that, we discover the beauty of who we are, the resilience, perhaps, at one level. But as I've said many, many times ago, for some of you, and for those of you who've just been watching along, maybe just the last episode, we learn to live fully, and love fiercely. So there's somebody who I invited to come along on this journey today. I think he's a brilliant person and really rather creative. So there's many ways today, as we dive into this, we're going to turn to Mr. Albert Einstein to help us understand our creative genius. As we go into it, I'm going to break it down. I'm going to look at science first, just how our bodies are just always creating. We're going to look at that. And then we're going to look at what it is to be a creative living force. And then third, we're going to tap into a little bit maybe of the neuroscience of the way that our belief systems shape how our body responds to our beliefs, as well as how we respond to the world. And then finally, we're just going to go for the ride of being creative and beautiful and living beautiful forces. Shall we dive right in? Yes. Let's look at the science of this. So your body, astonishingly, my body, is creating 3 million new cells every second. Right there, 3.8 million. And on top of that, in any 1 second, trillions of chemical reactions. Wowza! Okay, we just did that and we did it again. So in that way, it means that we create 330 billion cells a day. And these cells are regenerating all sorts of things. Potentially you got a cut, it's healing your cut. You have maybe a burn, it's healing your burn. It's making new blood cells, it's making new blood, it's helping regenerate new tissue so that you are potentially, if you worked out yesterday, your muscles are healing and getting stronger. You get the picture. Ultimately, in every cell, I want you to think about this one, which I think I told you before. We have something upwards of 30 to 40 trillion cells. In every cell performs about 1 billion biochemical reactions. So if we have about 37 trillion cells in our body, and we add up that 1 billion reactions per cell per second, that means we are in every 1 second, let me do it again, creating 37,000 billion reactions. Ultimately, all sorts of things are happening in our body. It is amazing. We are so absolutely dynamic. We are full of life force. We are creating all the time. Never in any moment, in sleep, in rest, at ever, is your body in static mode. It is always a living factory of renewal and transformation. I want you to think about the fact when you've broken a bone. In the right ways, given the right places, your body was able to heal the bone. If you had a cut, heal. Burn, heal. When you were a baby, you learned how to walk, you learned how to talk, you learned how to tie a shoe, and so on and so forth. Each and every day, your body and you go through a series of experiences, and you are able to ingest, take it all in, figure out what it means in your fabulous little brain, figure out what you need to do in order to teach or learn how your body to navigate, and then produce. Let's give you an example. You and your friend or partner decide to take dance lessons. You have never danced before. You might start off with some very basic knee bends, i.e. pliés, and you might begin to develop skills to the point where then some point you are learning how to do, some sort of pirouette or pas de bourrée, and so on. All of these are examples that you first went into an environment where you began to watch, learn, try. Then your body ingested that experience, that knowledge, and then with practice and so on, your body was able to accumulate enough that it was able to do these things. So not only are you biochemically creating, you are able to create at all times all sorts of ways in which you live in our world. So with every heartbeat, with every breath, and with every thought, it is always supported by a storm of activities. Every time you even think, listening to my words, your body created tens of millions of cells. And those cells carried out more chemical reactions than there are stars in our observable universe. Wow. That's the science part of this little equation. Okay. So here we are. I want to take it a little deeper. I want you just right now to just kind of get out of your own head about you and think about life everywhere on this planet. There are beings, animals, that live in the oceans. There are beings and animals that can fly in the air. There are beings and animals that can live in earth. There are beings that are potentially still and quiet, that produce hundreds or thousands of leaves, that are larger than houses. There are beings that are so small that it is so hard to see them with the naked eye. Life is everywhere, and we're part of this incredible experience of life. So I mention this, and I want us to have that perspective because there's this big question that at least once in our life we ask, why? Why are we here? And I'm not necessarily going to answer that, but I am going to say, what if we could take a look at us as if we're part of a tapestry of the universe, and we're just one of the pieces of threads that make this beautiful tapestry. I love the way that Einstein says that a human being is a part of a whole called by us, humans, the universe. A part limited in time and space. He, humans, experiences himself, his thoughts and feelings, as something separate from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. And we'll stop there. He actually has a call to this kind of greater way of what is a possibility for humans, and part of being that tapestry that we're not going to go into. But I love the way he describes us as part of a very big design. And I believe that. I believe we are part of a very big design. So what I want to get into here is that part of his quote around how we experience ourselves. And I am going to, in a moment, tap into a little bit of psychology and neuroscience, because we're going to talk about this actually kind of interesting perspective that we feel very individualized as beings. Each and every one of us, though we might be social creatures, each and every one of us have an individual perspective. And it is greatly understood that our individual perspectives shape us. And so at the beginning of this conversation in regard to creativity, I named one thing, and I pointed out science's way of explaining it. We, by just the nature of our being, are creating always, all the time. And now I'm going to put another layer on this, which is the neuroscience or psychology of how our thoughts and beliefs create our world. Okay, so let's take a look at neuroscience and belief systems and how they too are part of this creative adventure of being a human being. Neuroscientists show that through repeated thoughts, we will literally wire or rewire our brain. So that when you hold any kind of belief, whether it is hopeful or fearful, neurons begin to fire. And those neurons in your entire brain that fire together basically will form pathways in which our brain will, if you can kind of think of it like a road, will begin to use often. And the more our brain uses it, the more it becomes hardwired. This hardwiring and the use of it over time is what changes our brain's structure and literally our chemistry. So in short, what I'm saying here is that your belief systems will hardwire your brain, and your hardwired brain will change your actual structure of your brain and also the chemistry that our rest of our body uses in order to rebuild and function throughout our days. The second thing I want to get into in regard to neuroscience and beliefs is mindset and healing. So psychologists now emphasize that the mindset will critically influence our health. Our outlook on life will critically either help accelerate our recovery, while negative expectations can hinder it. I think I told you once before, based on how you look at the world, even how you learn things, when we were talking about curiosity, if we believe this is something and want, things can accelerate very quickly, and our brain will shift and take in the information very deeply and begin to assimilate it into our body. This is also true of healing. One great example that we know in modern day psychology is the placebo effect. When people believe they're taking something that will heal them, that there is actual signs that though the actual thing they're ingesting has no healing effects, the belief itself showed healing in a body, in a person. So, another example of the power of our belief system. The third thing that I want to share today is epigenetics and biology. Modern science now is revealing that beliefs can actually change our gene expression. That based on what we believe in, we will ultimately inform our genetics how to change. So our beliefs are so powerful that they don't just help us throughout the day or maybe give us the abilities to heal faster or learn deeper. But they can actually affect our genetics. That is so huge. Let's bring this all together, shall we? You are creating all the time, completely unconscious creations. And now we have learned to some degree or another, the power of your belief systems will inform your body on what to create. And yes, there is a very big movement for manifesting right now, which to some degree or another is very cool. At another level, what it is missing is the embodiment of who you are. It, again, often requires you to leave your current experience and try to manifest something beyond you. I am encouraging you, even in your manifesting, to embody who you are, to look at what you believe, to heal the wounds or mistaken beliefs that have held you back, and in doing so, create the world that you want to create. Ultimately, if we can think about it, your beliefs are embodied. They don't just live in your mind, they shape your body's biology. And your creativity is dependent on your self-beliefs. It is also dependent on what you believe about the world. It is dependent on what you believe about others. And then last, this mind-body connection is so foundational, and we are beginning to discover how powerful that mind-body connection is in science. We have one more place to go. So many of us find ourselves asking, what is the purpose of our lives? Why are we here? Why? What an impossible question to really answer truthfully. I don't think any one of us, even someone as powerful and as imaginative and as smart as Einstein, really fully knew. I am going to propose that we ask a different question. What if? See, if we're creating all the time, and we now know that we are, and if we're also becoming aware that our thoughts shape our mind, shape what we create, then what if we began to choose to do something new, different, or even something that maybe isn't new, but something we didn't think we were capable of doing? I love the way that Einstein speaks about imagination, that ultimately knowledge is finite, but imagination has no boundaries. And that this, I think, imagination, creativity, the divine spark within us, is a very big note to who we are as human beings. That there is no boundaries, that everything is possible. And yet it takes us to give ourselves a concerted nod, a willingness to see what is potentially messy about our own lives, messy about our current life that we live, and then maybe even messy about just life in general. And inviting curiosity, which we've spoken about before, and then creativity together is harnessing something so profound that it takes us out of this dance of performing and trying to get acknowledged so that we can move further and hopefully get more credit for doing things, to stepping into partnership with ourselves, with our body, and maybe even with the divine. A perfect union, if you will, of mind and body, spirit. A delicious invitation to discover, even though sometimes in the discovery it feels like you've made a mistake or you failed, where Einstein would say, anyone who has never made a mistake has never tried anything new. And I agree with that. It is, according to Einstein, that this is where all the opportunities lie. Choosing not to go down the path of knowledge and what everyone else is doing, like a lemming, following all the other lemmings, but choosing to turn inward, choosing to listen to yourself, willing to push through, discover what maybe you did not know about yourself, and possibly you did, but weren't all that comfortable with. Seeing what is so absolutely, maybe at the first blush, interesting. Wow, I never knew that about myself. To maybe one day actually really beautiful about you. Creativity. Creativity isn't just about producing something. It is the opportunity to think for yourself, think differently. Knowledge gives us tools which are important. Imagination, creativity gives us the opportunity to redefine the world if we choose to. Joy and curiosity and even mistakes, then, they become essential ingredients for us to discover, to delight. And this idea of creativity allows us to stop that crazy, alluring drumbeat that calls us to throw everything that we are potentially doing or working on down and just run back to what we already know, and gives us the opportunity to maybe discover new, cool things, or maybe forgotten wisdom. The wisdom of potentially what this tapestry that we are a part of, the very thread by which we are created to be part of the amazing universe that we are invited to be a part of. So let's go back and take a look at that quote again, and maybe you'll see why I like this quote from Einstein so much. Okay, I read half of it to you, so let's read that first half again. A human being is part of a whole called, by us humans, universe. A part limited in time and space. He, humans, experiences himself, his thoughts and feelings, as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection, for a few persons nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature and its beauty. So, to me, this delusion that Einstein speaks about is what I call the uneven playing field and the invitation to do the mindfuck math is what keeps us imprisoned, restricting us to our personal desires and affection to only a few persons nearest to us, as he would say. And I think if you think about it, that is ultimately what tends to happen when we find ourselves competing against each other, pushing each other away. This idea of what he says, to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion, to embrace all living creatures, which I'm just going to add, include you, because it ain't so easy to love ourselves. Matter of fact, we often feel much more compassion for other beings than we would do for ourselves. And that is just really, I think, a big part of the invitation of Beauty Flip. And I hope Einstein. So he says, our task must be to free ourselves from this prison, Etta's uneven playing field. He doesn't say that, but I'm adding it in, by widening our circle of compassion, which I want to say, hello, is to embrace all living creatures, including yours truly and you, and the whole nature in its beauty. We looked at you, in conclusion, a couple of episodes ago, and we looked at your divine spark. Today, I am proposing that your divine spark is part of an amazing tapestry of something far more powerful and profound than any one human can put their sights on to create empires or companies, etc. It is more powerful, more nourishing, more profound, more mind-blowing than any face cream that you could ever put on. It will delight your senses. It will explode your perspectives. It will give you all sorts of new ways to discover better than any blowout possible. So, again, find the opportunity to create, to discover your belief systems, to potentially create new ones, to open your mind to the amazing journey of being part of this universe. A tapestry so gorgeous, and you are one fractal part of that gorgeous universe. Let's flip our script. Let's get creative. Let's figure out what's so goddamn beautiful about you and me. Okay, you miraculous human being, you. Ooh! Now you see every single breath you take, every single heartbeat is just a reminder that you are part of this amazing tapestry, that you are part of a great creative force called the universe. You, my lovely, lovely, are not ordinary. You are extraordinary, wild, and luminous. And together we are flipping our scripts. We are discovering what is so goddamn beautiful about you and me.